54 souls, shackled, silenced, dragged across oceans in the dead of night, a 50-hour odyssey from Louisiana to Tehran, where fear awaited on the arrival, cries ignored, wounds hidden, promises broken. The first US mass deportation to Iran, a flight of despair and a return to darkness. In late September, a quiet but unprecedented operation took off from Louisiana, a chartered deportation flight carrying 54 Iranians bound for Tehran. It marked the first mass deportation of its kind, following months of negotiations between Washington and Tehran. The New York Times, which first revealed the flight, said the deportees included political dissidents, Christian converts, and ethnic minorities, many of whom insisted that returning to Iran placed their lives in grave danger. Among them was 34-year-old Mehrdad Dalia, a political activist from Mashhad who had fled Iran years earlier after criticizing Islamic law. He entered the United States illegally in April, hoping to claim asylum. Instead, he found himself shackled, handcuffed, and forced aboard a plane back to the country he had escaped.
They told me, "You are either getting on the plane on your own, or we will tie you and send you back."
Dalia said he pleaded with US officers not to send him back, warning that he faced persecution under the Islamic Republic. His pleas went unanswered. As he was dragged onto the flight, he screamed and begged for mercy.
"They will kill me in Iran. Please don't send me back. Please have mercy."
The flight took nearly 50 hours, stopping in Puerto Rico, Cairo, and Doha before reaching Tehran. According to the New York Times, all deportees were shackled and handcuffed for the entire journey to Doha. The Department of Homeland Security described the restraints as essential to the safety of passengers and staff. Another deportee, identified only as AA, described being tasered and restrained with a straitjacket during the transfer.
"They used electric tasers to pacify me, and when that didn't work, they put me and another guy in straitjackets and tied us to our seats."
Qatari officials told the Times they had received no asylum requests during the stopover and that all procedures were carried out in full compliance with international law. But accounts from the deportees paint a far darker picture, one of fear, confusion, and desperation. Dalia's ordeal began years earlier in 2014 when he fled Iran with his father and two brothers after being detained and tortured for criticizing Islam and the Iranian government. The United Nations High Commissioner for Refugees, or the UNHCR, later recognized all four as protected refugees. His brothers were resettled in the US, his father remains in Turkey awaiting transfer. But Dalia's attempt to join them ended in tragedy. Detained by US Immigration and Customs Enforcement or the ICE after crossing from Mexico, Dalia filed for asylum. His claim was denied. When ICE tried to deport him on a commercial flight, he refused to board, staging a hunger strike in detention. On the day of the September deportation, he said he attempted to end his life.
"I cut my wrist with a razor. They rushed me to a clinic and then put me in solitary confinement until the flight."
The DHS disputes his account, saying no suicide attempt occurred. But by dawn the next morning, he said he was dropped off at a bus station in Tehran, disoriented and terrified.
"It feels like I'm in a nightmare. I did everything in my power to stop them, but the ICE officials didn't care."
Once home, he borrowed a phone to call his mother in Mashhad.
"Mama, come and get me," I told her, and I broke into a sob.
For AA, a member of an ethnic minority from Western Iran, the fear was just as palpable. Separated from his pregnant wife after crossing the US border, he was detained while she was released under monitoring to give birth in Tennessee.
"You have to kill me first before sending me back."
AA's wife, Mina, gave birth to their first son 2 months ago.
"My husband would never, ever leave willingly, because more than anything in the world, he wants to see his son, and he wants to stay alive for him."
What made this flight possible was a rare cooperation between Washington and Tehran. The Times reported that Iranian officials, led by Abul Fazl Mehrabadi, head of Iran's interests section in Washington, visited US detention centers in Louisiana to verify the deportees' identities and issue travel documents. We worked with the Americans to facilitate the flight because our policy is that we don't want a single Iranian citizen to suffer in detention. Mehrabadi insisted the deportees would face no problems upon arrival in Iran. But according to Ali Harishi, a Maryland-based immigration lawyer representing several of the deportees, that promise was hollow. Harishi told Iran International that at least 3 of his clients have had their passports confiscated, while others have been summoned by Iran's Revolutionary Guard's intelligence branch for questioning. One Christian convert remains in hiding. Another political dissident has been forced to move repeatedly to avoid arrest. Upon landing in Tehran, deportees were met by plainclothes security officers and government representatives. They were handed forms demanding personal details, such as home addresses, relatives' names, email accounts, and even WhatsApp numbers. Several, including Dala and AA, were told to be on notice for further questioning. Since then, both men say they've received calls from intelligence agents ordering them to report for interrogations. The DHS maintains that all 54 deportees had final removal orders and were given due process. Spokeswoman Tricia McLaughlin told The Times that the flight included dangerous individuals. A White House spokeswoman, Abigail Jackson, defended the move as part of President Trump's broader immigration policy. Rights groups, however, warn the deportations may violate US asylum obligations, given Iran's long record of persecuting political dissidents and religious minorities. Iran's foreign ministry has claimed that more than 400 Iranians remain in US custody and that additional deportation flights are under discussion. For decades, America served as a refugee for Iranians fleeing repression, many of whom arrived illegally but later secured asylum. That tradition, critics say, is now eroding under a policy of mass deportation.